Good day and bright day to you all over there. Special greetings from the National Open University of Nigeria, Abuja headquarters. You are welcome to another exciting moment of our class on EDU256 Physics Method. In today's class, we shall be looking at a very important and critical, a concept, and that is methods and techniques of teaching physics. It is a complete module that has been divided into 5 different aspects, 5 different units. We have method of teaching physics, resources for teaching physics. We're also going to talk about preparation for teaching physics laboratory design, safety and management, and we're also going to look at the concept of evaluation of science teaching. And it's my hope that you're going to get the best of this facilitation moment. Get your pen, your writing material, and let us meet on our learning platform. So meet today. You are welcome to the learning platform. I'm your facilitator, Dr. Amusalu Adamlari. And of course, like has been introduced, methods and techniques of teaching physics. There are 5 different units under this module. And we're going to take them one after the other. And the first we shall consider is going to be methods of teaching physics. In this module, we have methods of teaching, resources for teaching physics, preparation for teaching physics, physics laboratory design, safety and management, and lastly, evaluation of science teaching and learning in physics. And we're going to begin with methods of teaching physics. And the word teaching embraces a lot of things. We have curriculum planning, instruction, measurement, evaluation, and some other important components. The method of teaching are the approaches or means which a teacher could adopt in order to carry out the function of instruction or of lessons. So there are strategies, they could be called approaches, that teachers will employ to get, his or her students taught. Not just teaching, but for clarity and understanding. So it is generally known that no teacher restricts himself to a single method of teaching. You dare not just stick to a method teaching. Now, what is our goal at the end of this class? At the end of this lesson, the objective are 1. Students should be able to list methods that are adequate for teaching physics. You should be able to describe the activities involved in each of the methods. State the merits and demerits of each of the methods and explain the factors to be considered in choosing methods to be used for teaching a particular lesson. So these are some of the goals or the objectives you are going to attain at the end of this class. Generally, method of teachings are categorized into 2. There's what we call the general method and there's what we call the specialized method. So we're going to look at them one after the other. More emphasis will be on the general method. Now, what are the general method? Under the general method, we have the lecture method, so popular, discussion method, demonstration method, experimentation or we call it laboratory method. We have discovery and inquiry method, project method, field trip or excursion method. So these are some of the common methods that are regarded as general method of teaching. The specialized method, they are not too common, but they are used for special occasions or to handle special topics. We have what we call concept learning, and common example are the concept mapping or diagram. We have what we call rule learning technique. At this time, we make use of advanced organizers. There's algorithm and procedural learning techniques. We have problem solving or problem-based learning techniques. Model-based teaching strategies for difficult and abstract physics concepts. You can use analogies, simulation, to create understanding. And there's what we call conceptual change strategies. These are categorized under specialized method of teaching. Now let's look at lecture method. Among the general method. Under lecture method, we see it as the most, commonly used method used by teachers in presenting, lesson in the classroom. Science teachers also make use of them, use them in presenting ideas, concepts, and generalization, and so on. So it is a one-way communication method from teacher to student, and it has been, very popular because of its common usage. It is good for large classes when you have a very large number of students to take. So lecture method, and it is very, convenient for the coverage of syllabus content. So because they are very fast and it saves a lot of time. So that is why it is commonly used by most teachers, including science teachers. And it has been categorized with a lot of demerits. And part of them is learners are generally passive in the class. They don't participate. They merely listen, take notes, and they do not develop critical thinking because teachers, do most of the talking and most of the teaching, and it does not create, it does not bring in creative abilities in the learner because they have not been tasked. So it generally encourage rote learning. So that is why you see students that are just passive, they just stay on the board and begin to roll out, content. Another method we are going to look under general method is demonstration method. This is used for explaining how to use an equipment, carry out an experiment, solve mathematical problems, or how to do anything in a specified way. So the teacher demonstrates while the students or the learners, they keep looking at what the teacher is doing. Teacher demonstrates while the learners observe. It is an attention inducer and a powerful motivator when used at the beginning and ending of a lesson. So it saves times and materials because in a situation where a school could not provide all the necessary facilities and perhaps you just have one equipment, one of the apparatus, you can only use that to demonstrate for the students. So enable teachers to demonstrate delicate practicals. And in some instances, when you don't have your students, you don't want them to have access to dangerous equipment, the teacher make use of it and demonstrate to the students. So that's demonstration method. Now let's go to discovery method, or sometimes it's called inquiry method. It involves a structured, sometimes unstructured, exploration in the laboratory through which the students use his mental processes of observing, measuring, classifying, and hypothesizing, and so on. And draw conclusions from such data. It is a student-centered and inculcates manipulative skills. It encourages retention, recall, and transfer of knowledge. This method is generally considered to be costly and take a lot of time because students take their time to go through those steps, and in some cases they are usually structured and they have processes to follow, so this takes time and just often run away from them. Let's go to discussion method. In discussion method, it is considered to be learner-centered and it is anchored on the principle of self-construction of knowledge. Students are actively engaged in this. An individual is the sole builder of his knowledge, which springs from within the individual and not from external source. So it is not a situation where the teachers will be doing the talking. The learners, they participate actively because they do most of the talking. The teacher role is merely to moderate or facilitate learning process, negotiate, and act as catalyst to set the learner's mind into thinking and reflection on the topic or concept. However, it does not allow for easy coverage of syllabus and takes a lot of time, which can bring in boredom. So, because discussion, you might get to a student who may not be able to, actually make his point clear and has to, redo and take those things again. So that's about discussion. It is learner centered. Another method is laboratory method. Laboratory method. This refers to practical activities which involves the use of apparatus to conduct experiments in the laboratory under certain rules and guidelines. It is usually expensive and may be delicate to students. So this is one of the most active and student-centered method that are encouraged for teaching physics. Students are actively engaged in this method. And the last one we're going to consider under the general method is the field trip method. This method adopts excursion taken outside the classroom for the purpose of making observation and obtaining specific information. It is students are taken outside the classroom, they go on excursion, learning excursion. It is difficult to plan and execute. That is one of the demerits of this method, always, because it involves a lot of money, it involves permission from parents and a lot of other stages, and that is why it is not so commonly used. There is the fear and danger of accident during the trip, so parents in most cases doesn't want to take part in this kind of method. Now let's have this self-assessment. Now take a topic in physics, list your instructional objective, select teaching strategies, the appropriate one, which you consider effective for achieving your stated objectives. Thereafter, justify your selection. Now, another important thing to consider here is what are the important factors for selection of teaching methods in the class. Before a teacher goes on to teach, you must select a method, and what are those things that you use to select this method? We have the learner's age. You have to consider the learner's age, suitability of the topic, competence of the teacher, size of the classroom in terms of the population of the student, resources available, and time of the lesson. So talking about learner's age, delicate equipment as well as hazardous chemicals will not be left for young ones to handle. So, in this case now, laboratory method may not be too suitable for this for a particular age. Suitability of the topic. Certain techniques will be used to achieve the stated instruction objective better than the others. So the lecture or the teacher, the lecture method, for instance, will teach factual information. It's very good, very useful in teaching laws, concept, principles. One laboratory method will teach practical skills better and respectively. So these are the competence of the teacher. The teacher must be able to understand his weakness. So the field teacher should select a method that he or she can effectively handle. This implies that if the teacher feels more competent in the lecture method, regardless of his limitation, that method should be employed instead of using another method which the teacher is not proficient and thereafter cannot use effectively. So the competence of the teacher is also very key in this regard. The size of the class. The size of a class is an important factor to consider in selecting a method to teach physics lesson. Large classes are better taught using lecture method and discussion method. So this one is also very important. Then the resources available. The resources available to a teacher often constrain him, in the selection of the method. If a school does not have a laboratory, for instance, it is impossible for the teacher to employ laboratory method. However, he can use the demonstration method in the class to show how some of the practical skills can be attained. And time of the lesson, the learner are more active in the morning and than later in the day. So this is also very important in the selection of topics to be used. I mean, the selection of the method to be used during the class. On this note, I think we have been able to gather some facts. So, and we're going to meet again in the next class. So, until then, bye for now.